Hey, this is just a quick note to let you know that Team Champs 2025 has been sponsored by City Strength. You're probably already familiar with City Strength. They're Australia's exclusive retailer for SBD, but they also sell a broader range of strength and powerlifting related equipment. So a big thanks to City Strength for sponsoring our competition this year. And I hope you enjoy this episode. G'day, everybody. I'm with Matt Crundle of the Crundall Crew, veteran of Team Champs at this point, has competed and has had his team represented numerous times now, and who will be obviously competing in the Premier Bracket this year, 2025. So excited to be speaking to Matt and hear a bit about his team and preparations. So yeah, welcome, Matt, man. It's good to see you, and yeah, good to chat with you.
Thanks for the welcome, JP. It's good to chat with you again.
Cool, man. Like I said, you guys are in the Premier Bracket, so you were filled into the Premier Bracket last year. It was obviously our first year running that system, and in some sense, I just had to choose the teams that I thought were going to be more appropriate for that bracket, based on their performances of the year prior as well. And you guys did enough to kind of stay in that top division. But there will still be a lot of people that might not know you. And obviously, we've shifted federations, right? We're now into APA, no longer in USAPL like we have been in the last couple of years. So do you want to give us a bit of your background at Team Champs, especially, but even just in general? Like I know Crundle Crew is an online crew, so you guys are an online coaching brand. You're not specifically working at a gym.
Thanks. So, yeah, I'm Matt Crundle. I've been powerlifting since 2017, competing since 2017, coaching since around 2018 to 2019 till now. The brand I coach under is Crundall Crew, so that's all my athletes. And I do personal training a little bit out of the gym called Training Day, where a lot of my online clients happen to also train. And this year, I'm pretty excited for Team Champs.
Awesome, man. And how many Team Champs have you done now? So obviously you're there the last couple of years, is that right?
Yep, so 23 and 24.
Right, so the two editions that we did under the USAPL. And you guys are back for a third year. So, I mean, this is one of my favorite things is having teams repeat efforts, coming back every year, trying to like improve on previous performances. And you guys were a really strong, formidable team. And we're going to talk a little bit about your history and how you guys went last year. You were one of the few teams that were quite notorious for lots of subs, lots of swaps, and you were very strategic, and you really liked the strategic side, which I fully respect. I love that. I love that some teams are taking it that seriously, that you're trying to maximize your competitiveness. And because of how strategic you guys were, we had to include some rules this year to try to minimize the swaps. And so there's only 2 more changes that are allowed to be made as of, we've got 2 days left until those swaps get made. How did you kind of see that all play out last year? Because there was a huge shift. Some of the weight classes emptied out, other weight classes filled in. What was that like? I haven't spoken to you about it since then.
The changes last year were pretty hectic. There were some predictions I had for certain teams, which actually ended up unfolding as I thought. But then there were others which I don't think myself nor any of the other coaches might have been able to see, because they might not have been at the gym where those athletes could have even been training, etc. So the main example is Panthers coming in with their revised roster and winning. As much as I thought I knew a lot of the team's sub-athletes, I had no idea that they were going to sub in who they did, and then they won. So turns out they were the most strategic of all. With regard to the rule, I had a feeling it was because of the mayhem last year. That's pretty funny. I was just wondering.
It wasn't specifically you guys. Let me just make it clear. It was just a mayhem, as you said. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I was wondering as well, with that final change being 2 changes, is that, for example, an athlete can swap out for another athlete, that's 1 change, and then let's say there's another athlete that's already on the team and they change weight classes, that's considered the second change? Would that be?
No, I'm just counting actual individual changes. So swapping people out, changing weight classes is fine.
Oh, okay,
that's fine up to this Friday. I mean, every lifter could change weight classes. That's fine. But swapping out individual people, that's the one thing I wanted to limit the most.
Okay, right. So 1 change is swapping someone out, and the other change would be swapping the other athlete out for another athlete.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty much waiting for post May 16th to see all those changes come through. Because of how last year played out, I'm just going to assume each team has some tricks up their sleeves that I probably didn't see, especially because there are more teams, um, teams from outside Victoria as well, that I wouldn't be able to see who their roster is. Anything can happen.
Yeah, will be very exciting. I spoke to Beck Chambers the other day, and that episode went out just yesterday. So if you haven't had a chance to go check it out, you guys ought to. And in that one, we spoke a little bit about reserves. And you're obviously prepping for a meet, and you pick your 4 lifters. Is this something that you do, that you speak to maybe 6 or 7 or 8 lifters and say, okay, you're all kind of on the team, you should all be prepping. We're going to kind of gear you up just in case we need to make a swap or someone gets injured. Is it something that you do proactively, or is that something you just like wait until it kind of arrives and then you kind of have to bring it up with someone?
That's actually what I did last year and I think the year before. But for this year, I didn't do that. I basically just asked everyone and selected the team on 2 main criteria: how keen somebody was, and also the effect on the team it would have. So I didn't ask every single person I coached, but I did ask a broad array. And I mainly wanted this team to be a mixture of people who are really keen to do it. And we didn't have to have a back and forth or much discussion about them wanting to do it. And also looking at the potential other placings and athletes of other teams, and them having an advantageous sort of stack up against those athletes.
I love that. So you like basically simplified your selection process to this like 2 criteria. Like someone's got to be enthusiastic to do it, and obviously being competitive is an important part of that as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's why this time around, it'll be like a really just solely fun one for us.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, I'm not going to ask you if you've got any changes up your sleeves, because we're going to leave that till this Friday and this Saturday when that all gets announced. But I do want to ask you about your team in general. So do you want to introduce to us who the 4 lifters are that you've got, a little bit of background about them, what weight class they're in, and that whole kind of thing?
Yep. So I'll go in ascending order of weight. So Steph Hong is the 57 kilo female representative. She's been powerlifting for, I believe, from competition date, about a couple of years, and maybe lifting a bit beyond that. She's having a really good prep, actually. She's in the midst of a weight cut, so she's was actually in the low 60s and she's now approaching 57, but her lifts have all been going up mid-prep, which is really, really amazing. So it's testament to her hard work. Jess is in the 69 kilo weight class, so she's the other female we've got in the team. She's had several comps under her belt, and funnily enough, she's almost done every single comp she's done at TSF, which is, I don't know, just find really funny. Her prep's going really well.
Yeah, I think she's done all but one, I think, or all but 2.
Yeah, and that might have just been a Nationals where she didn't do it at TSF. So, yep, she's a veteran, I would say, in terms of how many comps she's done, and she's really hungry to do well. Next is Victor May. So he was, for some reason, put in as a 93, even though he told me he clicked as 74 to sign up, which we'll sort out when the time comes. But he's actually a 74 kilo lifter. This is going to be his first comp. So it is a tall order, high stake first comp. It can be a bit nerve-wracking, but he's very, very hardworking, super diligent, and just manages a lot of variables in training to make sure he does well. And he's also conscious of why training may or may not go well when he's in the midst of it. So he's a very hardworking guy. The fourth athlete is Tom Diamond, who has signed up in the 93s. He was either going to be an 83 or 93, but due to just hecticness of his life and being quite busy, I'm actually going to sub him out. I'll just say, I'm actually going to sub him out. The person I'm replacing with.
Interesting.
Yeah,
we've got the declaration early.
Yeah, but I won't say who it is. The person I'm subbing him out with is rapidly progressing, super hardworking, is super, super hungry to do the comp. So, yeah.
Awesome. I love it. So we do know that there's going to be one swap, and it's quite mysterious. The typo with Victor, man, I've actually had a bit of a hard time with the data management with this comp. It's been a real headache, and I've actually made a couple of errors, so I apologize about that. But I do want to kind of back up a little bit and just talk a little bit more about each individual lifter and the competition that they're facing. So Steph's in the 57s, and if I'm looking at this correct, there's only 2 other lifters in the 57, and they're both on day 1 while she's lifting on day 2.
Sorry, what was that first part?
So Steph's lifting on day 2, obviously, and the two competitors in the 57 kilo class. So she's in the 57s, and the other two 57 kilo lifters are Soph Dobson and Alem Hamoud on day one. So she's lifting essentially on her own on day two, but she'll basically be racing a set total. So that kind of makes things a little bit easier for you. Is that kind of something that you've looked into those other lifters? I mean, I know Sophie's really strong.
Um, I couldn't find the profile of the other athlete. I saw Sophie, and she's really strong. Uh, and it looks like she will have a really good lead after the first day. So all we can do is just do the very best for Steph and execute as best as possible.
Excellent, man. Yeah, I mean, it does make, obviously that's part of the advantage of lifting in the Premier bracket is that you get these situations where sometimes your closest rivals are on day one. And that's kind of like part of the benefit. It's like you need to perform well, get yourself into the Premier bracket, give yourself that advantage that you can then kind of like leverage to hopefully score really well. So that's really good.
That's an advantage that last year we did have. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's an advantage that last year did really pay off for us. We had at least one or two athletes competing against rivals that were quite neck and neck, and us having that day two advantage basically just mapped out our day so we could just hit a plan rather than need to go in a head-to-head. So it was really nice.
For sure. I would like to have there have been more teams on day two, but just the way things have worked out, there's only 8 teams, so it's going to be really interesting, no doubt at all. Now, the class that I'm most looking forward to is the 69 kilo class. Like, I think this is going to be one of the best classes to be kind of like watching as a spectator on day two specifically. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about what you're expecting on in the 69 kilo class? Because all the best lifters are on the same position, I would say.
69s are stacked. The main two opposition that I've been looking at are Lota and Isabella Macris. It could be anyone's day, to be very honest. It's going to come down to making attempts and then also having a bit of foresight with attempt selection on deads, pretty much. It'll be a really big dogfight, in my opinion.
For sure. Like you said, these are competitive lifters. Even Carmen Di Domenico is really strong. I know she's got a huge deadlift on her, training out of ESS. So you know for sure she's progressing because she's under some good coaching there. And as you mentioned, Loda is a weapon. Lifted for Apex last year, has competed internationally before. I think she's Irish background, super strong. And Isabella Macris continues to improve. And is also very, very talented as a lifter and just built to lift fucking heavy weights. So it's going to be a really, really big fight. And I think the way that class pans out is actually going to determine heavily the final standings of the team results because, Jess could easily finish, maybe not easily, but could quite plausibly finish first, but could quite plausibly finish fourth. And the same is true for all of those top four, I'd say. It could very easily go either way. And that's the difference between 3 or 4 points. That's the difference between coming second overall and 7th overall. That's the way we saw it last year.
Yep, 100%.
And Victor May is in the 74 kilo class. So what do you kind of foresee seeing happening there?
If the nominations stay as they are, with Brian Ong and Dean Antoniadis in the 74s, then we will try our very best to collect a bronze or at least place top 4. So that's pretty much the plan.
Yeah, right. I think also there's Frank Bachetta is also lifting.
Yeah.
Is he at 74? Yeah.
Yeah, that might have been a recent entry, but I did in the back of my head have Frank as a sub because I had seen him posting training footage and his body weight was getting closer and closer to the 74s. And I just...
Suspiciously close.
Yeah, suspiciously close. And I thought, Victor's obviously going to put him in. So, but
yeah. And I think that was whether it was always the plan or whether it was just a response to obviously Victor having to go to Worlds and that clashing kind of timetable. Hard to say. But I don't really know much about your lifter, Victor May. So pretty competitive, but obviously, it's a tough battle with Brian Ong lifting in that class as well. As you said, Dean's a very strong lifter, lifted at nationals numerous times. And, we know Frank is a class actor as well. So it's going to be a tough class as well.
Yep. So this is going to be his first comp. He's quite strong. Like will be nearish or in the ballpark of around 600. But with the array of lifters we've got going on, the main objective is there's 2 main things I would say is to, regardless of how they go, just hit as many attempts as we can to maximize his total, and then just also maximize his experience on the day as it is his first comp, and it's one that's pretty unique. It's going to be in a really team environment. Essentially, just do his best and have as much fun as possible, and then see where he ends up as a result of that.
Yeah, it's going to be obviously a very competitive kind of environment for the first time. Is that something that you talked about your criteria? Is that something that you think about? Like, I spoke to Tyler last year from Apex Strength, and he had a first timer lifting, and we had a long discussion about the pressure that might put on a first timer. Do you think that they're going to be able to rise to the occasion? Will that pressure or that stress kind of get to them? Is it something that you're worried about in someone like Victor? Like, you mentioned that Jess is a veteran at this point. Like, it probably lifting at TSF probably feels like training for her at this point. She's lifted at our gym many times.
Yeah.
But someone like Victor, who hasn't even competed before, is that a concern that they're going to panic, or you feel like this is kind of someone that you trust is able to control that kind of thing?
Victor's really headstrong, so I do trust him with his ability to just enter into a heavy weight and get it done. His training history is one of precision, so he hits lifts. If he's strong enough for the day, if his externals are managed, he's eaten enough, he's slept enough, he does hit his lifts. He doesn't typically, he doesn't miss on technicalities or a misgroove or anything. So if his body's fueled up and he's G'd up enough, I'm very confident of what I put on the bar for him will be lifted.
Awesome, man. That's good. I mean, and that'll be good for him to hear as well, that his coach trusts him.
Yeah.
Obviously, you do. Yeah, of course you trust him. You picked him for the team, and I'm sure he deserves to be there for sure. And mystery lifter number 4 will have to wait until we find out what that looks like later in the week or next week, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Even hearing you speak, you're obviously like very prepared. You've done your research. You've looked into some of the other lifters. How do you think Crundle Crew is going to go this year? Have you thought? I mean, I'm sure you have, but have you thought much about what are your goals this year? What do you want to try to? Where you want to place? And what would you consider to be a successful day, a successful meet for the team, as opposed to, I guess like not a KPI, but like a benchmark. Like what would be the benchmark for you guys?
It's hard to say predictions because I suspect a lot of changes are going to come through. So honestly, it's so hard to give a prediction that I can't really give a confident one. But in terms of goals for us, regardless of how the other teams go, I would really like to score within, I can't remember exactly how we placed it, I think whether it's 5 or 6, but around there, or at least to make the Premier bracket again would be the main goal. So yeah, that's the main goal, make the Premier bracket again and just perform as well as we can with what we've got and how all the other teams make their changes. Last year, I was happy with the result, not only because we stayed in the Premier bracket, I think it was top 5, but I noticed that the Team Crundall Crew placed the highest out of all of the teams that were just an online coach coaching them and didn't have multiple coaches or weren't part of a gym team. So that part actually was pretty good for us.
That's such a great observation. I didn't actually notice that until now that I'm looking at the results. You're right. So for those that don't know, the overall placings last year, first place was Panthers Powerlifting, gym based in Brisbane. Elemental Strength, well-known powerlifting gym in the west of Melbourne. Apex Strength, Melbourne Strength Culture. And yeah, you guys, Crundle Crew. So you're the top of all the online crews. I think that's actually such an important thing to recognize. Below you had Lou Lift, Sim Strength, also online crews. But I think that's such an important thing to acknowledge, because I think I've said this in a couple of other episodes already. The gyms are the ones that have much more depth. You've got more members or more people, like a gym, especially a gym that has 150, 200 members, some coached, some not, some with different coaches. You just have a big pool of people to choose from. It's much easier to find substitutes, much easier to find gaps where you might have a lifter that can fill in a gap where there's a weaker weight class. You can target those weaker weight classes. But when you're, solo coaching and you have a roster of, 30 to 50 maybe, or maybe a little bit more for some people, it's much, much more challenging. So that's such an interesting thing that you pointed out.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure, man. And it's something you should be proud of.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's going to be hard to make some predictions until we find out the final teams. But yeah, definitely wanting to finish to make it back into the Premier bracket for the year after is always a good goal. It's the division you want to stay in, right? It's like the top division. you want to stay where you belong, and you don't want to get relegated into the challengers bracket for sure. Now, I know that you've done your research, like I said earlier. Who do you kind of think are the teams that you're most looking forward to watching, or who do you think are going to be ones on the podium? Again, some substitutes are going to come in. There are going to be some changes, but there won't be the mayhem that we saw last year. Like I said, there's limits, and so there are some teams that you're like really like, ooh, those guys are going to be at the top, or are there some teams you think that maybe are being underlooked? Like maybe not enough people are paying attention to this team.
To be honest, this time around, I haven't been as neurotic as I was last year. Mainly for the reason that what happened last year was an upset and also something that came out of left field and wasn't something that I could pick up or I think other people would have been able to pick up. So for this year, I did lighter sort of scouting, but made sure that I had made strategic decisions and ones that I think will be successful. I looked at the teams that I know of and the ones that are major players, mainly the gym teams, like you pointed out, that have large pools. Went over the athletes at their disposal, I guess, the people that train there, and thought, okay, if their strongest athletes sub in, this is likely the arrangement of their team. Beyond that, I didn't really do too much else. I think that was about the extent of what I did. Again, it's hard to say exactly how people will place. I haven't really thought about that at the moment, but I do think similar to last year, it'll be dominated by gym teams. So maybe a similar sort of layout to last year.
Cool, man. Yeah, I agree. I think that's like a pattern that probably flew under the radar a little bit, even something that I didn't exactly notice or appreciate entirely as a pattern last year, and that will probably continue. I mean, it is always going to be more challenging, as I mentioned before. But yeah, all right, good one. We're really looking forward to it. Well, we're just over 3 weeks out now, as we kind of alluded to. Final change is going to come in this Friday, and we're into the kind of home straight. So, yeah, is there anything just to round things off? Anything in particular that you're looking forward to, or maybe some individual lifters that you really want to see how they go, or something that you're particularly curious about?
In terms of the competition itself, I'm just mainly keen for the morale that's going to be had with our team, the fun that's going to be had, and just the experiences and memories that the team champs allow us to have. Before that is also what I'm equally excited for, which is I'm planning to have some sessions with the team at the gym all together, just so we can get around each other, G each other up, support each other, and just savor the joy that is the prep of the team champs, because it's not just the comp day, it's also the prep leading up. Every comp prep is quite meaningful. If you can amplify how good that feels with your team leading up to it, it's not only fun, but it'll make the comp day even cooler. So it's more about enjoying the time and training with the team, and also competing with the team on the day is what I'm really keen for.
Awesome, man. I think that's a common sentiment. And I love that you guys are going to try to organize some group sessions. I think a lot of the majority of the other teams try to do that as well, get their crew training together. Especially, a lot of the online crews. Like I know you guys train, a lot of your clients are training at a training day, but a lot of those that might not be doing that, making the extra effort to like, okay, if you have to travel a little bit, maybe do it on Saturdays or whatever, train together, and that way you actually build that relationship, you build that kind of morale, that team camaraderie. It's probably my favorite thing, as you know, that's like a really big part of, the reason that we run this event. So awesome, man. I really appreciate you making the time today, chatting a little bit about your team. Obviously, we're looking forward to seeing who swaps in for Tom. But I'm wishing you and the rest of your team a good prep and a healthy kind of last 3 weeks before meet day, man.
Thanks a lot, JP. Thanks for having me, and all the same to you.
All right. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, brother.